Good afternoon, guys.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Guys, para saan nga ba itong meeting natin?
This meeting is for us to discuss the Convention on the International Regulation for Preventing Collisions at Sea.
So once again, good afternoon. I am Kenji Magsino and I will be the one to start this meeting by discussing the Part A General of the Collision Regulations, which comprises the Rules 1, 2, and 3. Part A General, Rule 1 Application. This rule is applied to all vessels sailing on the seas, to all waters which include major rivers having ports and those are visited by seagoing vessels, and to high seas, which means to open seas, coastal waters, and waters away from land. Rule 1 has special rules applied to harbors, roadsteads, lakes, rivers, or inland waterways. Exceptions are to be made in this rule for vessel with special construction, or in short, vessel which cannot comply fully with the provisions. Rule 2 Responsibility. This rule highlights the need for safety because if anything bad that might happen is on the vessel, on the owner, on the master, and on the crew, and no one should be absolved from the responsibility. That is why everyone is required to take their duty or main responsibility seriously to avoid any problem. This rule shall only be applied to risk of collision, dangers to navigation, and any special circumstance. Never use this rule to defeat your comfort. Rule 3 General Definitions. Rule 3 gives a general definition to make everything clear and to avoid hesitations. Power-driven vessel are vessel propelled by machinery and sailing vessel are propelled by sails. A vessel engaged in fishing are any vessel with lines, nets, and rolls, while a vessel not engaged in fishing are with trolling lines and do not limit its control. Conditions of a vessel are classified into 5. A vessel not under command is classified if there's a circumstance that she is unable to maneuver. A vessel restricted in ability to maneuver is classified through its nature of work. A vessel constrained by their draft applies to power-driven only, whose draft is along to its available depth. A vessel underway is defined as not anchored, not made fast to shore, or not aground. And a vessel restricted in visibility means the vessel is in condition which visibility is restricted.
I am Jubilea Cabral and I will be discussing the rules 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Rule 4 Application. This rule applies in any condition of visibility. It means that the rules in Section 1 of Part B is applied in all weather. Rule 5 Lookout. This rule means that at a minimum one lookout is required and they have to make a proper lookout with both their eyes and ears. Keep that lookout across the full 360 degrees of the horizon. They need to know what's going on ahead as well as behind him. Just looking ahead isn't enough. Looking at the radar screen isn't enough. The lookout need to be looking out in all directions, of course. It means to see and understand the situation by sight and hearing, as well as by other means which may be the radar and GPS, and by any other devices. Appropriate in the prevailing conditions mean in condition of poor visibility, the radar and human ears may be the only means of detecting other vessels. Rule 6 Safe Speed applies to every ship at all times when underway rules success that all vessels shall only proceed at safe speed. This means that the vessel should be able to stop from the speed she is traveling before colliding with another vessel or vessel aground. It is a good practice to be stopped fully in half of the distance of visibility so that you have a plenty of time to react to danger. This rule gives considerations in deciding a safe speed for all vessels. These include the traffic levels, visibility, and how close you are to the land or other dangers. Rule 7 Risk of Collision. It is applied to every ship at all times when underway. All vessels shall determine if a risk of collision exists with every vessel they spot, whether by sight, radar, or by other electronic equipment. To determine risk of collision, you should take a series of compass bearing at regular intervals from the approaching object. If the bearing remains the same and the object is getting closer, a risk of collision is deemed to exist. As with any situation at sea, assumptions should never be made based on poor quality information. If collision is deemed to exist, it is good practice to turn early and look around, ensuring no other vessel in the area are affected by your decision. If you are in doubt, call the captain.
I am Ron Briones and I will be discussing rules 8, 9, and 10.
Rule 8. Action to avoid collision. Any action taken to avoid collision shall be positive, made in ample time, and with due regard to good seamanship. Alteration of course or speed must be large enough to be obvious to another vessel. Action taken shall result in passing at a safe distance. Any action to avoid collision should rather be taken too early than too late, especially on large and very large vessels who usually react much slower than smaller vessels. Rule 9. Narrow channel. In Rule 9, a vessel proceeding along the course of a narrow channel is obliged to keep as near to the outer limit of the channel which lies on her starboard side as is safe and practicable. The same rule obliges a vessel of less than 20 meters in length or sailing vessel not to impede the passage of a vessel which can safely navigate only within a narrow channel. The meaning not to impede was classified by an amendment to Rule 8 in 1987. A new paragraph F was added, stressing that a vessel which was required not to impede the passage of another vessel should take early action to allow sufficient sea room for the safe passage of the other vessel. Rule 10. Traffic Separation Scheme or TSS. This rule applies to traffic separation schemes adopted by the organization and does not relieve any vessel of her obligation under any other rule. A vessel using a traffic separation scheme shall 1. Proceed in the appropriate traffic in the general direction of traffic flow for that lane, and 2. Normally join or leave a traffic lane at the termination of the lane, but when joining or leaving from either side shall do so at a small angle to the general direction of traffic flow as practicable. A vessel engaged in fishing shall not impede the passage of any vessel following a traffic lane. A vessel of less than 20 meters in length or a sailing vessel shall not impede the safe passage of a power-driven vessel following a traffic lane. A vessel navigating in areas near the termination of traffic separation scheme shall do so with particular cautions. A vessel other than a crossing vessel or a vessel joining or leaving a lane shall not normally enter a separation zone or cross a separation line except 1. In case of emergency to avoid immediate danger, or 2. To engage in fishing within a separation zone.
I am Ran Salvin C. Lara, and I will be discussing rules 11, 12, and 13.
Rule 11. Application. This rule is under by Part B, Steering and Sailing. Section 2. Conduct of a vessel in sight of one another. Rules in this section apply to vessel in sight of one another. Rule 12. Sailing vessels. When both vessels have wind on the same side, the vessel which is to windward shall keep out of the way of the vessel which is to leeward. Rule 13. Overtaking. Any vessel overtaking any other shall keep out of the way of the vessel being overtaken. A vessel shall be deemed to be overtaking when coming up with another vessel from a direction more than 22.5 degrees above her beam. Pag-overtake po sa starboard, 2 long blasts and 1 short. Pag po sa port side, 2 long blasts and 2 short. Pag po pumayag magpa-overtake, 1 prolong, 1 short, 1 prolong, and 1 short. Pag po hindi po pumayag, 5 short blast.
I'm Ken Leonard A. Lorzano. Now I'm discussing Rule 14, 15, 16, and 17.
And here an animation, you can notice that there are two power-driven vessels crossing toward each other. When they are nearly reciprocal courses, sometimes collision can happen, and in this case, each PDB must alter their courses to the starboard to avoid collision. Rule 15. In Rule 15, it is the same scenes as Rule 14. The difference is the other vessel has its own starboard, where it is the only one who can give way to the other vessel to avoid collisions. Rule 16. In here, you can see that all PDB must keep out the way to the other vessel or much likely to give way to the other vessel. It is much better if they will scan the area to see and clear if there are other vessels in the way. Rule 17. In this rules animation, you can notice that there are two PDBs aligned to each other. And here the other vessel will keep out of the way to give way to the other vessel, while the other vessel must continue to move with the same normal speed and courses.
And for the last part of our discussion, I will be discussing rules 18 and 19. So rule number 18, responsibilities between vessels. This rule applies to all types of vessel except for rule 9, 10, and 13 requires. To sum up the Rule 18, I will be showing a hierarchy of vessels, showing which vessel should avoid which vessel. The first vessel is seaplane. It is the lowest ranking of all the vessels and is required to keep out of the way of all of the vessels, meaning it is always the one who needs to adjust if it is inside of another vessel. The next type of vessel in the hierarchy is the power-driven vessel. It is the second lowest ranking of all the vessels and is required to keep out of the way of all the vessels except seaplanes. Next in line is the sailing vessel. It is required to keep out of the way of all vessels except seaplanes and power-driven vessels. Next are fishing vessels. Fishing vessels are required to keep out of the way of all the other vessels except seaplanes, power-driven vessel, and sailing vessel. Next vessel in the hierarchy are vessel constrained by her draft. It is required to keep out of the way of vessels not under command and vessels restricted by their ability to maneuver. Vessels constrained by her draft can be characterized in daylight by having a black cylindrical shape. Then at night, it can be characterized by having 3 red lights in vertical position. Second to the last of the hierarchy of vessels are vessels restricted by their ability to maneuver. It is one of the highest vessels in the hierarchy and is only required to alter her course if it is inside of a vessel not under command. It can be characterized by having 2 black spheres and 1 black diamond and having the black diamond in the middle of the 2 black spheres. Then at night, it can be characterized by having 2 red lights and 1 white light, having the white light in the middle of the 2 red lights. Lastly, in the hierarchy of vessel are vessels not under command. It is the highest ranking among all the vessels and is characterized as a power-driven vessel that has no capacity to move out of the way of the other vessel. It can be characterized in the daylight by having 2 black spheres one top of the other. Then at night, it can be characterized by having 2 red lights one top of the another. So that is the hierarchy of vessel. And remember, this rule applies to all vessels except for rules 9, 10, and 13 requires. Next is section 3, conduct of vessel in restricted visibility. Rule 19, conduct of vessel in restricted visibility. This rule applies to vessels not in sight of one another and is navigating in or near a restricted area of visibility. When we say restricted visibility, this may be caused by weather like hail or snow, fog, rain, and thunderstorms. And in navigating in restricted visibility, it is a must for us to master the use of radar when navigating in restricted visibility. So for the next part of this discussion, I'll be discussing where to steer or where to alter your course if you encounter another vessel in restricted visibility. The example will be presented using this 3D model of a container ship. In navigating in restricted visibility, it is an ease for us if we use 4 quadrants divided using 4 quadrants, dividing the ship into port and starboard sides and into forward and aft part. The division can be seen on the diagram presented in your screen. With 4 quadrants to discuss, we can now start in the first quadrant. In restricted visibility, if a vessel approaches on your starboard bow, you need to alter your course on starboard. For the second quadrant, if your vessel is being approached or in a collision course with another vessel approaching on your port bow, you need again to alter your course to starboard. In the third quadrant, again if a vessel is approaching or in a collision course with your port beam, you need again to alter your course to starboard. And lastly, if a vessel is approaching on your fourth quadrant or in your starboard beam, you need to alter your course to port to prevent a collision with another vessel. note that never alter your course to port side if you have a vessel on your forward part or on your bow. Then if you encounter multiple vessels, make sure to decide first which vessel is the nearest to you and alter your course to the prescribed direction until you pass and clear. Then proceed to the another vessel and alter your course until you pass and clear. So that's the rule 1 to 19 of the Convention of the International Regulation for Preventing Collisions at Sea.
Thank you for your listening and I hope you learned something from this video.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.